Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in again. My guest for this episode is Jennifer Beagle. Jennifer Beagle is an amazing woman. She has a very courageous testimony. She has been through a lot more than most, and she has shared her testimony on this podcast, and it involves the human trafficking industry. Me and Jennifer sat down and we discussed her life and her testimony, how she met the Lord, and what she's doing today. And before we share this testimony, I want to just put out there that we didn't spare any details. So, as far as rating podcasts go for listenership, I would say that this is more of a rated R episode. Um, it's just simply to put what she's been through, not a lot of people can handle. Not a lot of people um, really come out of the other side of this. And the Lord brought her out of this life, and her story, her walk, her presence among us here today is simply a miracle. And she explains how this happened. So prepare yourself to listen to a testimony of heartbreak, domestic abuse, human trafficking, drug addiction, and um, and just a lot of things. Truth be told, just a lot. Jennifer, though, is an amazing woman. She is brave. She's courageous. She is just blazing the trail for bringing awareness to this really dark side of humanity and helping people figure out how to combat this so that it doesn't happen to other young women or to other children. With that being said, she is a part of an organization called Safe Passage Kentucky, and I'm going to pull it up here. It is a nonprofit dedicated to combating child trafficking by reaching vulnerable youth with prevention and providing long-term survivor mentorship for trafficked youth. SafePassageKY.org is the website that you can visit to learn more about this nonprofit. She's partnered with them, and they have a tremendous impact here in Kentucky as far as just making sure that youth is given the tools and the opportunity to stay away from the clutches of people who would have them trafficked for profit. Like I said, Jennifer's an amazing person. But once again, I'll reiterate, this episode is pretty intense. For somebody like myself, as I was listening to her testimony, I'll go ahead and tell you, it was very hard to comprehend. Um, you wonder how people who have ever been there would make it to the other side. You not being a part of that life or not experiencing that yourself, you would think it's impossible. But in this episode, she shows us that the Lord defies that, and the Lord just defies the impossible. So, with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. I'm excited to get to the episode. Before that, this podcast is very grateful, and we're grateful for your support. We're grateful for you tuning in, listening, subscribing, commenting, sharing, liking the videos. Along with that, if you feel like you want to support this podcast financially, there's a donation page. It is patreon.com/George Shadburn, where you could donate. Or if you click on the link in my Instagram bio for the podcast website, there is a donation page for there as well. You can sign up to give on a monthly basis. Your support means everything. Your support helps improve this podcast. Your support gives me more opportunity to reach out to people and to invite them on so that they can basically just share their testimonies. Gives me and Laura opportunity to talk about our life, to provide you entertaining content that inspires you and teaches you something. So we are very thankful for that. And we just obviously, again, want this podcast to bless anybody that hears it. So thank you all once again for listening. Maybe you guys can hear the police sirens in the background. I'm close to the highway. But thank you all once again for tuning in. This is Jennifer Beagle, and this is the Shadburn Show. All right, Jennifer Beagle. It's Beagle, right?
It is Beagle.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Me and my wife, we heard your testimony and saw your video at Southeast, and obviously our heartstrings were tugged by what you said and what was told there. And I really am glad that we have the opportunity to sit down and just talk more and expand more on your story. So for one, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you for what you do, first off. But just so that the audience can get a little introduction of who you are, just go ahead and tell people who you are and what you do real quick.
Well, again, my name is Jennifer Beagle. Thank you for letting me come and share my story. It is definitely something I love to do. I am the director of an organization called Safe Passage, and we work with teens who have been or are at risk of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and sexual exploitation.
How long have you been doing this?
We just launched our services in January.
Okay.
We're a new organization. Okay. So, but I've been working in the trafficking field for about 15 years.
Okay. So a lot of people start human trafficking nonprofits. They obviously want to combat it and everything, and everybody comes from different walks of life and different experiences, but you have walked through more than most. And hearing that at Southeast was a very tremendous thing for me to hear, because more often than not, you don't hear about situations like that having a happy ending. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I want you to be able to divulge whatever you want to divulge, but a lot of people will be really taken back to know that not only are you trying to help people who have been in that, but you yourself have been victim to that at one point. So, man, how did you make it out? How did you get here?
Well, that's such a loaded question.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that, how I got out without saying how I got in. But I'll go backwards a little bit. How I got out was a complete fluke in my life. It wasn't intentional. I had no idea what was going on. I was locked in a closet crying out to a God I didn't even know. And I thank God that particular time, the one true God answered me. And literally, audibly, he answered me in a closet and said, finally, now I can do something with you. And I knew it wasn't a hallucination, which is what I was used to, but there was a peace that came with it. And I didn't know what to do. I had felony warrants for my arrest. I'm locked in a closet. I have someone that's trying to kill me on the other side of a door. And I hear an audible voice go, finally, I can do something with you. And I walk out of a closet into a brand new life. That is obviously the bullet point of 3 decades of living a life of abuse, sex abuse, and trafficking. So I in the short story, when I have like 1 minute to speak, I will tell people I was trafficked from the age of 7 to 31. But before that, I lived in utter chaos, utter abuse, and had no way out. Therefore, I didn't look for a way out. It was just a normal life for me. I walked out of a 7-year-old sexual abuse experience into 2.5 decades of just one thing after the next that led me into that closet.
I would hear something like that and I wouldn't even know where to begin on saying like, how can we avoid this? Because it kind of more so feels like, I mean, even you referencing it just now, you were 7 when this life happened to you.
Yes.
You weren't even comprehending what this life was going to be at the beginning of this road. And that to me is like, that's insane. For one, that's insane to me. But I almost like, it seems really, really hard for someone like me to say like, oh, I want to, I want to get out there and prevent this from happening and I want to reach out to those and stuff. But it's like, you're the one who understands the most, like how this is coming about. I'm kind of sorry. I'm thinking about so much at once right now. I don't even know why. For one, let me fix this microphone real quick. Okay. Right there. But this happened to you at 7.
Mm-hmm.
And you got out at 30.
31.
31. If I may ask, what was going on in between? And I know that's covering 20 years.
Yeah, no, that's no problem at all. When I was born into a family that did not know God, and it was severe alcoholism. My dad was very abusive to my mother. My mother was very promiscuous and had boyfriends and put my mom and dad together, and it was just toxic beyond description. Every day we saw fighting. Every day we saw somebody having sex in our family with somebody. And when you grow up like that, you kind of think these things are normal.
Yeah.
You find out that when you're in a bedroom with your uncle at 7 years old, who has already fed you pornography, already groomed you by loving you so well and touching you and coddling you, that when you find yourself in the bedroom with your uncle and you're getting molested, that this is normal because you were raised in that type of environment at home. I'm the baby of 7, so some of my older siblings were already gone, and the rest of us lived in that abuse. There was no way I was going to go to my mom or my dad and say, hey, this happened to me. Yeah. Is that okay? Because I don't feel okay. No, it wasn't okay, but I felt normal. It was a part of what my family did, was live in dysfunction and display it from the rooftop. There was no quiet. I mean, even though what goes on in the house, what stays in the house, hush, hush. And, but everybody knew what our family was like. Everyone knew our home and what was going on inside of it.
So you mean like neighbors and surrounding community?
Neighbors, surrounding communities. We lived in a small country community on a dirt road on a train track. The next neighbor was probably, 1,000 feet away, and a couple of mobile homes and our little house. And then, a quarter of a mile was another, and a quarter of a mile was another. So it was a small community, but everyone knew everyone. And all the kids would gather and play, and obviously I was part of that. So when my dad would be beating up my mom, she would holler, "Go call the cops." And we would sneak out of our bedroom windows, run down the dirt road to the neighbor's house, because we were dirt poor, literally. Right, yeah. We didn't have a phone. This is 45 years ago. And we would use her phone to call the police and go and let mom know the police are coming. And she would be like, no, you need to leave. The cops are coming. You don't want to go to jail. And we're sitting here like, didn't you just tell us to do this? So we would, and we got really confused. And So that's how people knew what was going on, besides the bruises, the beatings, the black eyes.
Did any neighbor try to interfere? Did anybody try to step in?
No, we were country folk, and country folk drank and fought, and this is just normal. It's what
And
goes
to them,
on.
some were just a little bit worse off than others, and that's
Sure.
just the way it was.
You had your people that felt sorry for you.
Yeah.
Oh, the poor family and poor Galleon family. It was just, it was sad, but we didn't know any different. My mom was extremely abusive to the children, and kids today don't know what abuse is with a switch.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we would get beat with that switch or a belt or a shoe or a frying pan or a spoon, anything that she could pick up.
Right.
And, that was trauma breeding trauma and anger breeding anger. My dad would beat her, she would beat us. And it was just this cycle that went on for years and years and years. So when my uncle molested me, you just brush it off. And
It was just another thing.
it was just another thing. I knew inside of me that it wasn't okay. There was something very wrong with this, but that was my uncle, and I loved him. He groomed me to love him.
Yeah.
And then, at 7 years old, you just go back into your dysfunctional family and you start drinking your dad's beers, which is exactly what I did. And at 9 and 10 years old, I'm already an alcoholic.
So the age of 7, you've been groomed into this life, and the life is now happening. You're moving on from your adolescent years into your teenage years, and by all that time, you're so numb to everything happening around you. Once again, from a perspective where I didn't have to go through that, I'm seeing this as like we're beyond anything good happening at this point, which is, it's a heartbreaking thing, but it's also like, it's such a bed of nails situation in my mind where I'm like, I don't even know where to start, because who knows what is going on in your mind. If I were to come in as a stranger and be like, hey, none of this is okay, we've got to go, we've got to leave, we've got to get out of here. But what was going on with you in your teenage years? What was life at that point? Because now you're older and making more decisions for yourself. You're more independent.
Before my teenage years, even, I started getting in fights in school. I'm 11, 12 years old, and I am already getting introduced to the system. And it was called the HRS, which is equivalent to the CPS here, Children Protective Services.
Right.
So it was the HRS there, and I'm getting in trouble. I'm skipping school. I'm smoking pot. I'm drinking at 11 and 12 years old, getting in fights. So I'm introduced to the courts, standing before judges, getting threats that I'm going to get taken away from my mom, out partying with the older crowd, 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of years of that just bad, developing that bad addiction even deeper, deeper, deeper. And I ended up in foster care, and I ended up in a foster home at 14 years old, got taken away from my mom. I was the last one at home.
Yeah.
So all my siblings are gone, and I'm in this foster home. And my foster mom was addicted to speed pills. She was very overweight, had the bypass surgery, and they used to give you prescription speed.
Yeah.
Pink hearts, black beauties,
Yeah.
and the real stuff. And so I would steal them from her and eat them like candy. But my foster dad ended up raping me as well. And in order not to tell on him, he would get me her speed, and he would feed me drugs. They owned a dairy, and he, all the farmhands had pot and beer, and she had speed. So he was feeding me the dope, and he became a sugar daddy, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't see it that way today, but in those terms, yeah.
I mean, well, he became a dependence for you.
That's a good way of
almost.
putting
was
it.
Like just a dependent factor. Okay, so being involved then with the legal system, you were brought into that. as an adult now, as doing some of the things that you do and you're trying to help people, everybody says all the time the legal system needs work. The legal system needs change, it needs reform, and nobody disagrees with that at all. What, in your opinion, did you feel like the system may have failed you in the areas where it had the opportunity to identify, like, hey, this kid is in trouble. Like, yeah, this kid is causing trouble, but she's also in a mess. Like, her whole world is insane.
I can only respond to that in retrospect because at the time I had no idea that it needed reform, it needed change. I just knew that I was a delinquent child, which is what I was told all the time. You're a bad girl, you're a bad kid, there's no hope for you, you're the menace of society, so you're going into foster care. You're going into the system. And that's exactly what I did. I just owned that. That was my new normal. Once I grew up and grew in the adult system, same thing. You're just a prostitute. You're just a felon. You're just a convict. You're just another menace to society. You're trouble. But I could answer that in retrospect with the system is made. Well, originally it was supposed to be made to rehabilitate. And now people say it's not made to rehabilitate, but overall it actually was, and it should be made to rehabilitate. You cannot take the problem from one area and put it in another area and just expect it to reform.
Right.
You have to do some form of rehabilitation. And you need to do a better vetting process with who you're placing your children with. Hence, I got even more addicted to drugs and raped in my foster home.
That to me is, I mean, of course, I have like such a little knowledge of how all that works. My aunt and uncle, though, they are a foster home, and they've
That's
already
wonderful.
adopted 2 kids, and
Good for them.
they're amazing people. But it's like, again, this bed and nail situation. I'm like, where are we going wrong, and like, or where, like, what area is this place experiencing neglect? But obviously, like with your nonprofit and your organization, you're bridging the gaps in a lot of those situations, and you're buttoning up the weaknesses, and then also you're taking initiative in a lot of areas that our legal system either can't or won't, and I'm not sure what it is, but I digress from that. But
Well, I say it's probably a little bit of both because the system really is so overwhelmed right now as well. I don't even know what it would take to reform it at this point, even though, like, I'm not a hopeless person, but there's also a reality.
Right.
The system is so overwhelmed. Communities are so overwhelmed. People are so overwhelmed. But there has to be a starting point.
Right.
There has to be some type of change in the system to start one family at a time, one child at a time. And, when you hear about good homes that are raising children that were taken from their bio homes, then that's so beautiful to hear. You use those people to educate your new people, like do something that would build a different system. You can't make a system a blanket statement. You have to be
Right.
flexible.
Right.
And I think that's a big issue that we have. It's just one system, and it's not going to work for everyone.
So, teenage years, you're in and out of the system. You're not finding places of shelter because the people that are supposed to be taking care of you are in fact doing the opposite. As you grow older, you're getting to your late teens, early 20s. What is life like then?
Well, I just ran away from home, and I kind of lived on my own. And then I got connected in the horse industry, and I
Really?
raced standard breds for 3 years. From 16 to 19. Well, before that, I went to Chicago with some family that traveled with ZZ Top. It was awesome.
That's
yeah.
cool. That's actually
yeah.
pretty cool.
From like a place like Buckner
Yeah.
to Chicago, Illinois. And that was
Wow.
awesome. And we went walking the streets one night and a gang shot at us. And I said, I think I need to go back to Florida now. So I really need to go home to my
Wow.
mommy that I can't stand, but I need her.
Right.
You know, but in that, I love my mom today. I want to say that.
Yeah.
But come back, and then I end up in the horse industry, and I'm racing horses from Ohio all up and down the East Coast, been to Canada, back and forth to Florida, and I meet my first husband at 19 years old. He was the truck driver of my horse van, taking us from Delaware, Ohio to Trenton, Florida, where I'm from.
Nice.
And there was a training track there, and my mom owned a restaurant. My mom was a tremendous cook. So she owned a restaurant, and that's how I met the guy that I went back and forth and traveled around with. So at 19, I meet this guy that's driving a semi full of horses, my horses that I was racing, or I groomed them. I didn't own them. So I rode in the back of the truck because I could smoke my pot back there and, get drunk, get high, and not have to worry about being in trouble. Well, this guy and we connected, and then 1 month later we were married. 1 month later I was pregnant with my son at 19, and we traveled all around America. We went from Kentucky. He was from Kentucky, Crestwood, and that's the root of it. We came to Kentucky, down to Florida, and we drove all down up to California, through Nevada, just circled, and did some adventurous stuff, which was pretty cool. But he was 38, and I was 19.
Big twist.
Big plot
I was
twist.
about to ask you, I was like, how old is
Yeah.
this guy? He's a 19-year-old truck driver?
Nope, he was 38, and he was a good old country boy, ready to settle down,
Oh.
Get married, have a family, and I'm buck wild.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm just like, oh, you make $800 a week. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
It's not too bad today.
Yes,
So
for sure.
I would take it.
Yeah.
But so he made really good money, and he said he loved me, so I married him, and 9 months later I have this little thing called a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm still a baby. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to take care of this child, but for the first time in my life, and even though I had just turned 20, people are like, oh, you're only 20 years old. No, I lived a long life.
Yeah.
I lived a long life to get to 20.
Yeah.
So I held this baby, and for the first time in my life, I felt love. I felt it. It was just absolutely amazing. It was, I wish, life-changing. To some degree it was. But it was fulfilling.
You had an awareness that this was different,
It was so different.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the first times I'm like, I'm not going to be like my mom. I'm not. I'm not going to neglect him. I'm not going to abuse him. I'm not going to call him names. I'm going to let him know every day of his life that he is loved and adored and wanted. And I felt it miserably. Within probably 6 to 8 months, I got back on the drugs. I got back into the lifestyle. And I started cheating on my husband, got a fake ID, going into bars, and just started drifting back into something that was so familiar to me. Raising a child was not familiar. I wished it was enough, but it wasn't. It was very unfamiliar. So I get arrested in front of my son. He wasn't even a year old. He doesn't obviously remember it, but I do.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that shame. And it wasn't like my mom now. It was like my dad, because my dad had gone to jail many times. Even through the, hey, leave, the cops are coming, he still went to jail a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I'm just no good. I'm no good.
Yeah.
I'm no good. And I just went ahead and went full speed ahead. and walked out of my husband and my child's life and back into the culture of party, party, party. I got a job at a bar, became head waitress, head bartender, living the life of that scene, found another guy. Wasn't divorced quite yet when I found my second husband,
Yeah.
who was equally as older than me. And I divorced my first husband, married my second husband, who was also equally as abusive as my father to my mother. And so now I felt like, okay, we can live life. Because my first husband, he wouldn't hit me. He wouldn't cuss me out. He wouldn't do drugs. He wouldn't do all the things that I felt like I needed to do.
Can I say something
Sure,
about that?
sure.
It feels like, it sounds almost like a relapse into going to that life a little bit, like going, like, not that the situation before was what it needed to be, but do you feel like a lot of that, and what could possibly be the case for a lot of other people in that situation, is very shame and guilt driven?
Oh, 100%. Shame and guilt is your number one enemy. And it will take you down because you get in your head, you get in your feelings, you believe the lies that it'll always be this way, you can never change, you're just a loser, or fill in the blank with whatever you've been told your whole life or for X amount of time. So the guilt and the shame, I'm guilty because I abandoned my son. I'm guilty because, I used drugs. I'm guilty because I quit school. I'm guilty. There were times I felt guilty about being 7 years old, being molested by my uncle. Like, why didn't you come tell somebody? It's not my fault.
Right.
I didn't come tell somebody because who am I going to tell? I'm a child.
Right.
Even at 15, 16 years old, when I'm running the country, racing horses, I'm still a child,
Yeah.
but made to feel like you're out of control. Nobody can handle you. Nobody can do anything with you. Even the system made me feel that way. Like, she's old enough now, just let her go. Just let her go. So guilt took me there every single time. Yeah, every single time. Yeah.
So now you're with your second husband.
With my second husband.
Your firstborn son and your previous husband, in, out of the picture, contact, is this kind of like, were you just at a place in life where starting a new chapter with this guy was what the only thing you wanted at that point, or?
All I wanted was drugs.
Yeah.
And that was a relationship that would allow me to do them. So I was willing to take the abuse. Abuse is an understatement. He would choke me out. He would choke my son out, beat us to a pulp, leave my son in dirty diapers, watch pornography for hours and hours, film us, make me pornography, share that with his friends, his brother-in-law, and just the epitome of evil. It was so disgusting. I tried to get out of the bar industry and got a job at a local grocery store in the deli, and I had to be there at 6 o'clock to set up to open at 7. And so lunch was at 9, and I'm usually just trying to roll over, let alone get up at 9. But I would come home and my son's locked in his bedroom, and, my husband is in the living room doing unthinkable things. And so that was that life. So when I'm living that life, it was still normal. As bad as it was still normal. We moved his sister in with us, and this is where it gets like, really? Just really that? How can you be like that?
Is this you thinking to yourself? Like,
yes.
reflecting on yourself?
Yeah, it is. And this, like, so my sister-in-law, his sister was a crack cocaine addict. We did everything under the sun already. And we moved her in, And we would drink and snort powder and smoke weed and do all the things that we do. Pass out because we're so drunk the coke wouldn't even do any good. But one night she offered me some crack. And she's like, hey, you want to get high with this? And I said, sure, and Jeff, or my husband's like, ex-husband, was like, no, I don't want you to do that. So, because he knew what it had done to his sister.
Yeah.
So that was like the one time if I could say, oh, maybe he did care for me. But at the time I'm like, well, he must hate me. He doesn't want me to get high.
Right.
Whatever. And we both pass out. I get up early and she's still up smoking crack. And she's like, you want to try it now? He's still asleep. And I'm like, absolutely. So I do. Hooked instantly. Just hooked instantly. And we run out very quickly. And she said, I know where we can get some more. And I'm like, well, let's do it. And okay, well, we can get it for free if you flirt with the dope dealer. And I said, easy peasy. I've just put on my bongo jeans and I said, let's go.
Bongo jeans.
Bongo jeans. They were the jam back in the day. Okay. It's like switches and bongos. They're both out, So it's like, I loved my bongos.
Yeah.
But we go there and I flirt with him and he gives us a bunch of dope. We go and smoke it. We run out very quickly. And we go get some more a second time and we run out again and we go back a third time and I'm flirting with the guy and he said, oh, no, little missy. No. Now you have to do what I want you to do. And I didn't realize at the time that they had set that up. She had set that up with the dope dealer. She trafficked me to get dope. She trafficked me. My sister-in-law.
So that's almost
It was, yeah.
I don't comprehend that.
I don't anymore.
I have to say, and this is just speaking for people that just don't know anything about this world. That doesn't compute. Where if somebody was like to tell me, hey, this lady's here because her family did this. And this is how it happened, I'd be like, I don't know the whole story. There's no way because
they knew her. She was just her and her husband, which is who my husband was showing the porn to. Us as porn, and like they knew her. That was her life, and he was a bad alcoholic and drug addict too. But he was an alcoholic and smoked pot, snort cocaine every once in a while. But I could do whatever I wanted. So, but they knew her. They knew the evil that she was capable of, which is probably why he told me no the night before.
He probably knew that there was more than what was going on.
And he needed to know not to move her in.
Yeah. And
so, not that it wouldn't happen, but it did. And the third time I find myself in a rundown, broken glass for the windows, sheets tacked up to hide, no running water, no electricity, filth everywhere. And, he's literally saying, now you do what I want you to do. And I did. I already needed crack just that fast the same day.
Is this, going into how most of this industry works, is that how they typically do it? Would you say, is this the route that most people take to get people to be compliant with being trafficked?
Yes, in America. That's probably the more accurate route, and that is across the board with infants, toddlers, children, teens, adults, the whole gamut of, yes.
So listening to all of your life leading up to that point, most people would be looking at your situation and the people that wounded you or took advantage of you as this is a bad situation. This girl, she's been broken. The people around her are also broken, and they're just hurting each other because there needs to be some outside intervention. But this moment seems like a very direct step of, this isn't just broken people. This is, I mean, a part of me is like, let's call it like it is. This was intentionally evil to its core. That there was a plot to say, hey, we're going to take another human, an image bearer of God, and we're going to make her sick to the point where she'll do what we want her to do for money, for exploitation, for whatever. I don't know how to deal with that for myself personally. Like, my heart goes out to so many individuals who are in broken homes and broken situations, and I'm like, let's bring them to a better place. Let's show them the truth and stuff. But then, you know, how am I gonna like understand that somebody like willingly, just knowingly is like, yeah, I pretty much manipulated this person into becoming a slave, and I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. You know, I wish
that's rough for me.
It is rough, and it's rough, you know, even it's rough for me.
Yeah.
And like the solace that comes from that is, one, I can see that this person was a life without Jesus Christ. And that's the biggest root of it all. And without Jesus, I mean, Judas was with Jesus and turned him in.
Yeah.
You know, he walked with Jesus for 3 years and still betrayed him.
Right.
So I can't expect anything different from a human that doesn't know Jesus in my life. I didn't know Jesus at the time either. And so the reason why no one tried to help me or get me out of this situation is because they actually expected that from me. It was the product of my own life, not my own fault to begin with, but they thought surely by now she's old enough to make right decisions. But no right decisions were ever exampled to me, only wrong ones.
Right.
So it was really easy to choose that. I mean, do I want to get high? Of course. Yeah. Of course. Do you want to try a new drug? Absolutely, because I've already done all these other things for so long that, you know, it suffices. But then crack. Right. Crack was like, man, I fell in love.
Was there an awareness when he said, now you do what I want? Were you aware that the tables just turned for a worse situation?
I think so. I do think so, because my husband, I knew that when I went home, my husband was going to know that I had sex with someone. He was very aware. So I knew the table had turned in the fact that I'm in trouble. But not because I'm in trouble because now I'm addicted to crack, sleeping with somebody for it. Right. I'm in trouble because I'm going to go home and my husband's going to know that I had sex with someone and he's going to kill me.
So dead ends everywhere.
Everywhere. And that's exactly what happened. Go home, get the snot beat out of me over and over again. But the habit, I needed it. There's no way, just like you need Jesus to save your soul to get into heaven, I needed crack. There's no other way of putting it. So I was a bartender and a cocktail waitress at a very large bar there, and made killer money. So I would make some tips, and then I would spill a tray of drinks on me. And I'd be like, I spilled drinks on me. I got to go home and change. Yeah. And I would go buy dope. And I did that a few times before people started getting suspicious. And then I just didn't show back up at work. And, you know, I had front row seats and backstage tickets to Reba McEntire. My husband was I used to
watch that show all the time.
Oh, I love Reba. Yeah. But he was a country music artist and a really good one. Yeah. So we got tickets to meet people all the time, and I dipped out on that one
Yeah.
and was getting high, and just a lot of things started happening. And my husband left me. I don't even know where he went anymore, but he left me, and I had our mobile home that we lived in,
Yep.
just a 2-bedroom trailer. And I started smoking more and more dope, bringing traffickers in, bringing pimps in, bringing dope dealers in, and I would sell them my couch, or I would sell them my picture, or I would sell them my shower curtain, or do you need some spoons at home? You can do a lot with a spoon. And
Right. Right.
I sold the chain link fence around where my dog, I had a dog, and I starved my dog to death because I couldn't feed him. I had to have dope, but he stayed inside in the mobile home, and then I sold my mobile home for $1,500, and I left. I was now out of options. My son had gone to live with his biological dad, and he took him from me and said, "You won't ruin my kid. You won't do that, Jennifer." And they moved back up here to Kentucky, and I'm homeless in the streets in Gainesville, Florida. And I was scared to death, had nowhere to go, didn't know anyone but these dope people, and some pimps started trying to put their clutches in me, and some of the prostitutes on the streets. We didn't have Backpage, we didn't have Snapchat, we didn't have internet, period.
Yeah.
We stood on corners and we walked the streets. It looked like Vegas sometimes, literally.
Jeez.
And so the pimps were, throwing me offers, and I chose my one pimp, Bobby. And I stayed with Bobby for almost 3 years under his thumb. And I finally broke away from Bobby after a while and went independent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm an independent hooker.
Wow.
It just looks really great on a resume. So it just, yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sure there's a ton of questions in some of that. I don't know. I don't know.
So, okay, so you're down in Gainesville. That's all happening there. One of the things that kind of caught my attention the most was it was from a mobile home to homeless.
Instantly.
And that is a demographic that you entered into, and you were there for an extended period of time. And
8
you
years.
were how
8 years.
you were homeless for 8 years.
8 years.
So you're a homeless individual for 8 years, and you share a community with individuals who are being trafficked. You are a hooker, you have a pimp, you are bunking with those individuals.
Yes.
Again, never experiencing any of that in my life. Whenever I drive the streets of Louisville, and if I see a homeless individual on the street, typically we'll give them the change out of my hand or give them some pizza, something like that. But in my mind, I'm always thinking about that person that it's a wrap. It's a wrap. There's not a, it's just kind of, there's going to be just a fading out at this point. And you were a part of that community for 8 years. So with that being said, what do you see when you see people on the streets? When you see people standing on corners? Because my heart breaks for them, obviously. But I don't know that intimately. And you do. What is that for you?
My heart automatically knows that is a person that's created in the image of God Almighty. Like, let us make man in our image. No matter what that person has been through, no matter what the person has even chosen in their own life, they are still created in the image of God. And if they're breathing, they have a purpose. I mean, God's not going to just start dropping people dead left and right with mental health issues and stuff like that. But there's a purpose, and sometimes that purpose is for you. I have done homeless ministry after I got saved for years and years and years. And the best thing that you can do, people say, well, I'm so tired of people begging me for money. What is $1 going to do? What is it going to hurt you?
Right.
That $1's not going to hurt you one bit. And it's not even going to help them under or without the fact that you could actually lead that person to Christ with $1.
But it's an open door moment to say.
Well, it is an open door. It's an open door for multiple reasons. I've had people say, hey, holding a sign, hey, I need a beer. And I gave them $3 and said, hey, bro, get two. I don't care.
Right.
That's not my issue. That's between him and God. My role now is to say, hey, you are loved. And if you want to get a beer, get a beer. Thank you for telling me the truth. So whatever, even if you lie to me, I don't mind. Here's $1.
So 8 years homeless, and now we're reaching the point where you're in the closet. You're physically in the closet. Obviously things aren't going well at this point. Somebody's wanting you to do something you don't want to do. You're wanting a way out. God finally says, now I can do something with you. That guy's gone. You come out of that closet. A new opportunity begins. What happens now?
Yeah, this is such a great journey. What happens now? Well, I get reconnected with my son not almost instantly, but pretty quickly. And I didn't speak to him. I walked out of his life when he was 4 after I sold the trailer and went homeless. Never spoke to him again at all until he was 12. And he was living here in Kentucky, had no idea. My mom had given me his number and said, since you're doing so well now, here, this is where your son is at. So I call him, he answers the phone, just 10 miles from this location right here. And he answered the phone. It was when we had home phones back in the day.
Yeah.
And he said, hello. And I said, Christopher? And he goes, Mommy. He knew my voice.
Wow.
He knew it was me. My ex-husband, grabbed the phone and said, hey, Jen. And we just talked. I let him know that I love Jesus and I'm a different person. And he's like, I'm going to have to see, what's really going on.
Yeah.
No problem. My walk was very strong very quickly. And I got back in my son's life. So that's one of the greatest things that I can say right there is just like, man, my kid.
So getting back in your son's life, you're on your walk with Jesus. Are you still in Gainesville?
I am.
Okay. How much longer were you in Gainesville? Where did you go after that?
I stayed in Gainesville.
You stayed there?
I stayed there for a long time.
Okay.
I got clean in 2001.
Did you enter a program or?
No, I entered Jesus.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen like that for everyone. It really is a miraculous story.
Right, because I'm like listening. I'm like, so.
Yeah, done instantly. Instantly healed, delivered of every drug for 21 plus years, instantaneously in that closet. Heroin, crack, meth, opiates, marijuana, alcohol, not cigarettes.
Yeah.
I needed a Newport for a little longer.
I've got some friends, who went through addiction and stuff like that too. And sometimes they'll do like a weed butter on their toast or something like that. And they're just like, listen,
hey, get some gummies or something.
Right. Seriously.
I'm down. But, so, that was the greatest thing. I walked into a church I walked into 12-step meetings and it just never was enough. It works for some people, but it didn't work for me.
Where did you find the 12-step meeting lacking for you?
Jesus.
Yeah. Is there not enough of that there?
There wasn't then.
Okay.
There are a couple more now that are faith-based.
Okay.
And some with very good fruit, proven fruit for the longevity of it and
Right.
and growing. But I went to, AA, NA, cocaine-aholic, and jailhouse religion. I've been to jail I don't even know how many times, so it's just ridiculous. But
Yeah.
nothing worked. Nothing
Yeah.
stuck until I walked into a church and gave my life officially to Christ. I believe I gave it to him in the closet
Yeah.
on November 5th, but then on January 27th of the next year, I walked to an altar and prayed. And that was awesome.
You're making reconnections with your family,
Yes.
and that's good.
Yeah.
How are you breaking ties with the people that want you
Man,
back?
some I didn't,
Yeah. But how did I mean, as a young woman,
Yeah.
as a young woman where there are dangerous men out there,
Yeah.
how are you telling people no? How are you telling him no?
I mean, I could tell you
or-
some great stories, and I will. I'll tell you this one that's coming into my mind. So I had a regular customer from the streets. He was completely harmless. And you just learn that as a prostitute. You do.
You get a read on who's dangerous and
You
who's
do.
not.
Yes, absolutely. So he would, he was a regular customer.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I had gotten a job at the Home Depot after I got out of the industry and got saved and I was clean. And I'm working at Home Depot and I'm working in the garden department. And this guy comes in to buy this stuff. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
So you
And
see him walk in?
Yes, and he recognizes me immediately. He's like, oh, Natalie. That was my street name. And he's like, Natalie, you look so great. And I'm like, thanks. Super people pleaser here.
Was he not weirded out that he was like,
No,
Natalie, hey, I don't usually see you
No,
here.
he's pulling out his checkbook, Like, I'm promising you, there are some people who just don't care.
Oh,
and
gosh.
so he's pulling out his wallet, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I need help, God. I barely know you, God, but I need your help big time.
Jeez.
And he's like, here, let's, I help him gather his stuff. I was like a top associate
Yeah.
in manager training and all of this. I was just like excelling at everything I did.
Yeah.
And so I'm pushing the cart because it was our custom to help them load their vehicles. And so when we get outside, he actually propositions me. And I don't, I'm stuttering, going, I don't think I can do this.
Right.
This is what I'm trying to say. It's not working though. And then finally I just dropped my head, closed my eyes, and I started quoting John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in the beginning, nothing was made without God, and everything that was made was for God. And I opened my eyes, and he is gone. He's gone.
He probably was like,
It's like,
oh gosh.
talk about conviction, right?
Well, yeah, but oh man, that dude, I can tell. You want to talk about figuratively getting caught with your pants down.
Yes, literally.
He's literally asking you to do something in that area, and then you literally say, you literally start quoting scripture, and I can't imagine what that dude is like going home, just being like,
yeah.
I
never saw him again either, which was very common, but I would love to.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Well, man, talking about, same area of guilt and shame and everything like that. Obviously, he's the one seeking out and paying for it and taking advantage.
Amen.
But at the same time, how crazy would that be to be the person who he was originally paying to say look, man, this can just all be different, and we can
part ways right here.
we can part ways. You can actually move forward in life with God, with Jesus, and you don't have to be in shame about this, and you can just be free. And I don't think people understand how much of an option that is, because it's crazy.
It is crazy. It was a very well kept, clean cut man, drove a great vehicle and
Well, he
stuff. So,
probably had a life that he was
well, that's
trying
what
to
I often
maintain.
wonder. And I wonder, did he get raised in the church and fall from God? And was that
Yeah.
a here's your last card kind of call to him, or what? I mean, I can paint a lot of scenarios and would love to know, but that is one that sticks into my mind. Like, I bet he knew the Lord.
Can I, since you brought
Yeah.
up this guy who was, you said he was harmless,
Yeah.
and so you're
Yeah.
breaking ties with people. You're like basically, you're literally quoting Jesus until they leave. Um, were there dangerous situations?
Oh, goodness.
And did that last a while, or were you able to get away from it rather quickly? Did you at least, like, you can answer all those questions,
Sure.
but then this kind of ties into, in my mind, like other people's situations. When you wanted it, were you able to have access to refuge?
On the streets or off?
Off.
Okay.
So you're done with this life. You're
Right.
getting out.
Right.
When danger comes, were you able to get refuge?
Well, on the streets, I, was beat, raped, left for dead, literally left for dead countless times. Countless times. You just don't even know why you're alive. Like, there has to be a God. You're alive. So, off the streets, the Lord set me on a path that got me sheltered by a group of women immediately. And they took me and they nurtured me and they loved me. I was like a project probably at first. And, but they mentored me, they discipled me, not only in Christ, which they did very well, but they discipled me on how to be a woman. So I have this group of people who I'm able to lean on, and I in my church I was very it was very obvious that I was different. I walked into a very rich church and asked for help, and they did. They helped me. They got me an apartment. They
Right.
paid the deposit for my electric, and they got me a home phone, and I got the job at Home Depot and all of these things, but they became my refuge.
Yeah.
And to this day, they are still my refuge, even though they're 800 miles away.
Wow.
They just, oh man, they loved me well.
That's good.
Loved me well.
That's
They
good.
loved me like Christ loves the church. And there's no other way of putting it. None. To the fact that Aaron, whom is just my heartthrob BFF, the guy that was on the other side of the door, the trafficker,
Yeah.
when he's beating on this door and he's going to kill me and all these different things, and I walk out of that closet and I walk into a church. Well, he walked back into my life. And I knew that I needed to get away from him. And I made those gradual steps, which were pretty quick, but we still talked and he still demanded from me. But now it wasn't, I can't do this anymore. I feel utterly disgusting.
Yeah.
Like the dirt beneath your feet on the floor, disgusting. That's why I couldn't do it this time. But now I found myself in a whole different situation. I can't do it now because I'm falling in love with Jesus.
Yeah.
And there's a conviction there, and there are people who love me and have shown me a different way, a better way, and I don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah.
Because if I disappoint them, then they're going to be just like all these other people in my life that left me, rejected me, said, I told you she was this way type of deal.
Yeah.
Even though they would not have, that's how I perceived it. So there's this. But I went to Erin one day, and she was cooking in her kitchen, and the guy and I had gotten into this major fight, and I told him, I wish you were dead. And I told her that like I was gloating.
Yeah.
And I told him I wished he was dead. And she goes, you need to repent. And I'm like, I do?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need, why do I need to repent? And, it's like, that's someone created in God's image. And, so it all plays that role
Yeah.
in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we're out. We're at Home Depot. We're, we're
Yeah.
we're growing. We're moving.
Yeah.
Now, at what part of your life does your eyes and your mind turn to, I got to help these other people. I got to help other people that were like me. I got to be a part of the solution now.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the journey take place there?
It was my birthday, and Aaron and two other of my friends, they took me to Red Lobster for my choice. It was my birthday.
Nice.
And she's like, what do you want to do for your birthday? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to take Bibles out to the streets and hand them out to the prostitutes. And she was a school principal, a mother, a wife, very prominent in the community. And her side of the story is, so my mouth fell agape. And I was just like,
yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Let's just get right on that, you
Yeah.
know. But we did.
Yeah.
We went to the Dollar Tree and we bought some dollar Bibles and we took them to the streets. And I saw some of my friends, other prostitutes. And
Did
they're
they
like,
recognize you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they recognize me to this day. I have some on my Facebook that we would prostitute with. I have my pimp on my Facebook. I mean, all kinds of people. But we passed those out, and it was just like a night at Vegas. Cars everywhere trying to pick up this prostitute. And Lisa's like, Nat, you need to go. You need to go. You need to go.
Wow.
But I could not go. I said, can I pray for you? She's like, yes, walking that way, you can pray for me. Cars are circling. She wants to get in a car, get some money, get some dope. But I knew that Jesus would heal her. So crying, I walked to the car and got in the car and left her. And that started a long stream of, I can't stop doing this. I can't.
You, in your mind, you're like, I gotta help them get out of this.
Absolutely.
I gotta get them way out.
That was in 2002. I'm still doing it.
Wow. I saw in your video too at Southeast, you said you've gone to a bunch of places.
Oh yeah.
So you've talked at places. You said something like 11 different countries.
I have.
So you've talked about human trafficking and the life that you went through, and you talked about it in 11 different countries. In those countries, the people that you talked with, the people that you had meetings with out there, does human trafficking vary in those places? Is the human trafficking in America different than other countries, or are you finding...
Yes. It's more open in other countries that I've been to.
Yeah.
If I went there specifically for trafficking or for the awareness of the trafficking there. Thailand, I went to the Soy Cowboy, which is a major bar in the red light district in Thailand. Spent some time there working in that district, and I would just purchase prostitutes all day long and take them. We went and saw Ratatouille, and we went and got our nails done. We went and got massages, and just spending that. But they would have numbers hanging around their necks, so people could identify them by their number because you couldn't speak the language.
Out in the open.
Out in the open. I have.
And what are the government's opinion on that?
Well, it's legal. It's legal. You can sell your child. You can sell your sister. You can sell whomever you want. You can purchase whomever you want. It's a booming industry. Pay your taxes type of deal.
Is that overwhelming to you to see that out there?
It pisses me off. I don't understand how people can, and some of these are children. They're small kids, 4, 5, 6, and 7 years old.
Children being with numbers around their neck?
Hanging around their necks. And, I'll take number 7. I'll take number 8. And this child is so numb anymore that they can't even fight this. But how do you rape a child? You know, when my uncle raped me, I was already numb. He had already taught me that this is okay and this is normal through grooming me. But I don't understand how you can consistently, and he only did it one time. My theory with that is that he got such a conviction and felt so bad he couldn't do it again. You know, that's my hope. At least I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because I have forgiven him. But how do you do that?
Well, it's haunting because you've got a family situation where things are done kind of in the dark.
Right.
They're done in secret. The neighbors kind of suspect, but there's no full disclosures out and about. But in those countries, you have a government and a society consensually saying, "Oh yeah, that's what that is." And you have a community that is observing it and fully aware and willingly standing by. And that to me is like, I don't know what to do with that either. And that to me is, that's a bed of nails. That's overwhelming, and that's a lot. That's a lot for me to handle just now. I didn't even know that was a thing.
It is a thing. And you know, I don't want to say, because
I really thought the underground trafficking that would take place in America is like how it is in the rest of the world. Like, I thought that there would be a visceral reaction of
that does happen. You know, obviously, you know, you have your areas where, particularly in your Asian countries, is where it's more prevalent with the openness and the selling of women and children, men too, boys too. Just, you know, statistically more with females.
Right.
So, but you have a lot in your Hispanic countries, a lot, and it's just growing more and more, especially with the issues at the border. You have a lot of child trafficking coming through that. There will be a day in America where it's legal. I mean, people are already pushing for it. I think it's Virginia right now is trying to push that they're making it as a sexual preference and not child rape.
So you're on the front lines of doing this now. You're on the front lines of combating this.
Yes.
Let's talk about the operations of what you're doing. What are the daily ins and outs? What's the weekly life, and what are yearly goals?
Okay.
What is your nonprofit all about, and how does it operate?
Absolutely. Safe Passage is fully dedicated to the anti-trafficking movement. You know, there's a cliche that goes around, in it to end it, and it'll never end, but we can make an impact.
Right.
And that is what we do. So we work with youth that have been sexually exploited through Romeo grooming or survival sex. Those are the two largest areas.
Romeo grooming.
Which is what my uncle did to me. He groomed me to think that I was his love and he was mine. It's literally your Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
You know, it's Romeo grooming. You have this guy who, and they're so patient. There's a difference between a trafficker and a predator.
Right.
And, you know, to understand those two different lingos. But Romeo grooming is exactly that. They just groom you to believe that this is your boyfriend or your girlfriend and that you can't live without them, and that's your love.
This is predatory.
This is predatory. It is. So once you get this person in your grip, then you traffic them. And it happens every single day.
Yeah.
So statistically, there are 300,000 children each year being trafficked in America.
300,000.
300,000. And that's just the reported cases, obviously.
Women and children?
Children.
Children. 300,000 children.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. So there's, okay.
And now there's survival sex, and that you will find, that's one that you will find a little bit more in your lower income neighborhoods because children run away from home a lot.
Right.
Statistically, 94% of trafficked youth have somehow filtered through the welfare system. So you take that 94% that have been or filtered through the welfare system, and they are runaways, end up in foster homes, group homes, different areas, and now they have to survive somehow. Hey, come with
Right.
me,
Right.
and
Okay.
I'll give you a bed to sleep in, but you got to
Yeah.
have sex. I'll
Right.
give you. I mean, I slept with someone for a fried chicken meal one time, and so that's survival sex.
Okay.
And it can be, it's not a candy bar,
Right.
but it is some form of I will take care of you
Right.
for this. And
Yeah.
that's the most common one.
Okay. So we're combating these, and this is the typical situations that people will
Yeah.
end up in this. Operations, as far as where you guys operate. I'm guessing you operate in Gainesville. You guys have a presence, like, as far as ministering to people
No, we're in Louisville.
in Louisville. Okay.
Yes, our office is based in Louisville.
Okay.
And the lady that founded it, Kara Starnes, amazing woman. She had a nudge from the Lord. Someone literally nudged her and said, "There's nothing for youth here in Kentucky. There's not plenty for adult women, but there's something. There's nothing for youth." So she felt that call, and she started planting the seeds and doing the footwork. And it's actually 2 years before she hired me last November to come on staff.
Wow.
And so I was able to develop curriculum and network and network and network and network. Today we work with the FBI. We work with local law enforcement. We go throughout the whole state of Kentucky. In southern Indiana, we work with DJJ, with case management, caseworkers, social work, whatever that looks like. And we get referrals through that, but also we get just walk-ins. Word of mouth is a great thing. And if there is a struggle or a potential struggle, we'll evaluate that and move forward if needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what is the 1 year goal? What's the 5 year goal? Is there a roadmap here?
Yeah. Love as many kids as possible. We, again, just launched services in January, but we are already packed, chock full of kids who have or potentially could be trafficked. And some of the saddest cases you'll ever hear in your lifetime of some situations. And, one girl caught on fire just to watch her die. And gratefully she got saved, and someone found her and she didn't die.
Yeah.
Gangs and selling yourself on Snapchat and, raped, left for dead, videos uploaded, just sad, sad, sad. So our 1 year goal is to love on these children. We have a bit of a roadmap. So I will meet with each of we call them participants, not clients, because we're not clinical based. We are relationship based. So they're our participants.
Okay.
We don't charge anybody. It's a 100% free service. And we will walk with that child for however long. If they're 11, 12, 13 years old, we'll walk with them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, if that's what it takes. So I've done a lot of this type of mentoring and ministry that's trauma-based and evidence-informed curriculums. Built that, walk with them, so for a year, and then we can hand this child off to an educated mentor that can walk with them even longer to help them with different sets of life skills and nurturing and inner healing, whatever that looks like. And,
Yeah.
hopefully one day walk down aisles with them at weddings or graduations from college. We have workshops and just different things that we will do as we grow. I have a large vision. I have a very large vision of what I would like for that to look like in a year. But we're still working out some of those desires and kinks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, operation is happening.
Yes.
You've explained that. If people are having their heartstrings tugged on right now, how can people help?
Great question. Do help. The first thing that I would really encourage people to do is not just get that heartstring pulled from a news clip or a YouTube video or a shared Facebook post. Actually start digging in and doing some research. It really sounds great when you know what you're talking about and you know what you're really diving into. It's very complex. It's not an easy thing.
It's a nuanced situation.
Well, it really is. It's,
Yeah.
it's as deep as the person has trauma. And if you don't understand trauma on top of, sex abuse for whatever kind, then, and love matters and love heals and God is love, but there's a process and there are steps that you can take. So start educating yourself and seeing what that looks like, how that, what area it's not, hey, I just want to help kids that have been trafficked. There are many different areas. There's LGBTQ. There's gender identity issues. Is this person identifying as a boy? Do you want boys? Do you want girls? Do you want, they were born this way and born that way, or there's so many different facets to it. So start educating yourself and seeing where you really do want to, delve into helping.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, don't reinvent the wheel. Find the people who are already doing and lift their arms up in the battle.
Yeah.
Come alongside of them. Everybody wants a new organization. And I get that. I've been that person. And so, but if that's what the Lord has for you, then get with somebody who is already doing it and let them mentor you in how to effectively start your organization. That's fine if that's what the Lord wants you to do.
Yeah.
But, don't start it tomorrow.
Right.
Do your work.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, I think we've taken a deep dive into your life, and I think we've gotten a pretty good picture on just, some people, I mean, who knows? Like, if you've never been in that, you never really have kind of an idea of how that could happen to somebody. But apparently, it's a life that'll just come upon somebody.
Yeah.
It came upon you when you were 7,
Yeah.
and what happened, but now you're here, and now you're a beacon for other people, and this is unique to you because. I mean, I've talked about this with Tony Cash, who, spent most
Great
of his
guy.
life in prison. He's an amazing dude.
Mm-hmm.
There is more of a connection when you will go talk to those sisters on the street. And you'll say, look, it doesn't have to be this way. It would be different if I were like, hey, I really want to invite you guys to church. I think there's a better way of life. Some people look at me and be like, well, dude, what do you know? You know? And it's even like if I went to the prison ministry, be like, well, I've never been in prison. Be like, well, man, you don't know about this life. I get it. But because of that, and Jesus bringing you out of that closet and into this new life here, you literally get to be a roadmap for others. You literally get to be an example of people saying, oh my gosh, yeah, it is possible. It is possible. And I'm really I'm honored to be able to talk to you about this. And everybody needs those stories of hope, because in this day and age, everybody kind of wants to look at the more pessimistic side of things. And I'm really glad that, that you're here and you're sharing your story. I really do appreciate it.
Amen.
I think we can wrap it up from here.
Yeah.
And, definitely can have you on again in the future too, to give
Awesome.
updates on what's going on and everything.
Awesome.
But is there anything else that you would like the audience to know about you, or anything, just period?
We all have the same source. And the grace that saved me under that source is Jesus Christ. We all have him. We all have access to him. But the grace that saved me is the same exact grace that saved you, even though you don't have my story. The grace is the same. The God is the same. So as you do, minister to people and reach out to people, you pull from the same source of love as well. So always act in that love.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if y'all have been listening, you guys obviously learned a lot, because I know I did. If you want to reach out to Jennifer, obviously, they can find you on Instagram. And
oh yeah, Instagram, Jennifer Faye Beagle, Facebook, anywhere.
Cool. So yeah, definitely reach out, give Jennifer some help and some support. And thank you all for listening. Jennifer, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time.